The new Forgotten Saga Rogue-Lite game mode for Assassin's Creed Valhalla has been announced as part of the celebrations for the 15 years anniversary of Assassin's Creed, and in this video we're going to discuss the official and unofficial information about it, along with sharing why I'm mostly not really interested in it. We're going to discuss the Niflheim setting for the game mode, the gameplay features, the boss battles, and more, especially in light of some information shared by AndyReloads and coming from the game files, while we're also going to have a look at the story context for this game, the mythology side of it, and how it risks to clash with the established lore, at least based on what we know. So let's dive right in and have a look at all the news about the Forgotten Saga game mode for Assassin's Creed Valhalla. So let's start from what we know already from the official sources. Forgotten Saga is the new and free roguelite game mode that has been announced for Assassin's Creed Valhalla, which is going to release during a not better specified timing of this summer. The PlayStation GameSize Twitter account has shared how an update for Valhalla is inbound potentially next week, but it's going to be a small one, so the game mode is likely to release further down the line, possibly in July or August. Forgotten Saga will mainly take place in the mythical world of Niflheim, or Hell, the realm of the dead, and you will see Odin trying to face Hel, Loki's daughter, likely as he's trying to find a way to resurrect his son Baldur, mirroring the Norse mythology but also matching the actual Isu story discussed in one of the Animus anomalies of the main game, meaning that this should take place after the events shown in the Dawn of Ragnarok DLC, which is also partially confirmed by the outfit worn by Odin in the trailer and in the key art. Like I mentioned, it's going to be a roguelite inspired game mode, which, as we mentioned in our video dedicated to all the announcements for the 15 years of Assassin's Creed anniversary stream, is going to be defined by map exploration, enemies and mini-bosses fights, a basic set of 4 equipment items, and permadeath, meaning that players will have to do it all over again after dying, but having learned about the map, the enemies, the game world, and so on, and also getting at the end of each session a reward to use in the next session to make the experience a little easier, including melee weapons, bows, and even coins, which, as we'll see, might be able to be used with some specific merchants in the map. That is pretty much the information we have been provided with, and I think that at this point we might need a bit of context both from the Norse mythology and from the Isu lore in order to get where this game mode is going to be set and what it might entail. Niflheim, which literally means home of the mist, is one of the realms of the Norse cosmology, a realm of primordial ice and cold that was actually one of the true primordial realms along with Muspelheim, from which creation began after the two realms collided and the Niflheim waters mixed with the heat of Muspelheim to form a creating steam. According to the Norse mythology, one of the 3 main roots of the world tree, the Yggdrasil, is standing over Niflheim, which means we could see it also in the background of the game mode's map, and apparently that is where the dragon Nidhogg is located, gnawing at the roots of Yggdrasil, which is why we're seeing and are also going to fight a dragon in this game mode, as we'll see. At some point in the Norse mythology, Odin appointed as ruler of the realm Hel or Hela, a goddess daughter of Loki and Angerboda, who within the Assassin's Creed lore is actually the daughter of Loki and his mistress Alethea. In the Norse mythology, Hel presided over a realm of the same name, which sometimes overlapped with the notion of Niflheim itself and other times was considered a part of Niflheim, and in this realm she received a portion of the dead, that is, those who did not die a heroic or notable death, and also those who died of sickness or old age and became eventually her subjects. In the Asgard arc of the main game, there is a tiny mention of Helheim, another name for the realm presided by Hel, which was tied to a location in Asgard called the Well of Helheim. This well, which was seemingly some kind of connection or passage between Asgard and Hel's realm, was at the center of one quest where one of the Einherjar, the warriors who had actually died honorably in battle, was trying to trick Odin into getting his wife back from Helheim, and in one of the possible outcomes, Odin convinced the man that he couldn't get his wife back because Helheim, quote-unquote, makes shadows of us all, and that his wife would have been ash in their arms. So we got some tiny little info there, plus a route between Asgard and Niflheim here, though I guess that the Forgotten Saga game mode won't take them into consideration that much, if only because we will access Niflheim in a different way, as we'll see. The events for which Hel and Niflheim are mostly known for, though, are those following the death of Baldur, which within the Assassin's Creed lore we witnessed in the Dawn of Ragnarok DLC, with his conscience being forcefully transferred in the Salakar artifact and later entrusted by Odin to Juno for the faintest hope that that way his son might have survived the Toba catastrophe. In the Norse mythology, the god Hermod actually travels to Niflheim in Hel's hall, finds Baldur there and begs Hel to allow Baldur to ride home with him, which Hel would have accepted only if all the things in the world, alive or dead, had wept for Baldur himself, and indeed everyone wept for Baldur, save, of course, for Loki, or more specifically, for a character named Thokkur, which is one of Loki's disguises that was even used during the Jotunheim arc of the main game. So Loki didn't weep and Baldur stayed in Hel in the Norse mythology, for a time anyway, as he was destined to exit the underworld only after Ragnarok. So how can that translate within the AC lore based on what has been established? It's pretty tough to do, that's for sure. As we mentioned in our past videos, we do know, thanks to the Animus anomalies, that the Isu Odin, after the death of his son, wandered several territories far from the Asgardian ones in order to find ways to resurrect Baldur, so that could apply to him also going to Niflheim, right? Too bad the Dawn of Ragnarok DLC changed that by showing that Baldur's consciousness after his death is now in Juno's hands and not Hel's. But Havi could still go to Niflheim and fight Hel for other reasons, right? Too bad the ending of the Dawn of Ragnarok DLC also implied that Hel has been rallied into a huge army led by Loki and marching against the Asgardian territory, so she shouldn't be located in Niflheim after the events from the DLC. Of course, this game mode is still to come out, maybe I'm making too many assumptions here, maybe it's set in one of the time skips from the Dawn of Ragnarok DLC, and maybe it will have the soundest of stories, but on paper it seems it will have to wrestle with the established lore already. Or maybe it just won't have to, or won't even take it into consideration altogether. I guess we're going to have to wait and see, even if the broad spectrum of the mythological events that it wants to portray seems to be quite clear. So yeah, that's the context we can imagine for this game based on the Forgotten Saga's official announcement, but you know how it is at this point. Much more about this game has already gotten through thanks to the game files analyzed by AndyReloads, Peder and Ipsarp, who already some time ago had seemingly found many more pieces of information about a variety of aspects connected to this new game mode. Of course, take this info with a grain of salt, it's all subject to change as you might know, but it is true that already some weeks ago and even recently, several game files involving the name Niflheim had appeared within Valhalla's client. There were references to word prototypes, to some outfits, abilities like Valkyrie Dive and Axe Fury, meaning that as part of the roguelite theme, maybe you'll also have to gain the abilities as you're exploring the world and they might not be available from the start, some potential locations like Dark Island, the reference to a Niflheim potion that might have been the actual way to access this new mythical realm and for which Andy had even found a missing and potentially dedicated spot in Valka's hut, and especially to a boss battle with Hel, which I'd imagine to be the final boss battle of the game mode. Very recently though, Andy published 2 more videos showing that the Niflheim references have multiplied in the game files, including a Lather emote for Hel, a reference to Hjan Gunnar, the king of the Goths that was located in Niflheim according to the Poetic Edda, and might be an NPC or an enemy in the game mode, and also a reference to a roaming merchant, which might be Reda or even just an NPC that allows you to get better equipment in this roguelite mode. Andy also shared some game files supposedly bearing the identifiers of a main quest, meaning that this expansion dedicated to Niflheim might indeed bring some story and not just a game mode, and we have already seen the characters of Freya, Thor and Hel herself, but I'm not sure whether I'm happy or not to see a new story in this kind of setting, considering the latest mythology-based releases. Yes, I'm talking about the Dawn of Ragnarok DLC, but also about the Forgotten Myths comics. These main quest references once again included the boss battle with Hel that we talked about earlier, but also to quote-unquote Baldur's throne, which seemingly does hint at some kind of continuation of Baldur's story in Niflheim, though like I mentioned earlier, I wonder whether this might bring even more narrative issues instead of solving the existing ones. Another main quest reference that had already been found by Peter before the 15-year anniversary stream was that to a dragon. The same dragon boss battle that was at the center of a lot of rumors regarding Valhalla and its DLCs weeks and months ago, and as we saw in the official anniversary presentation, it's finally happened, and I can't state how much I dislike this. This is so not Assassin's Creed. For me, this is going too far, even for a fantasy set of visuals used to create a non-real environment to tell actual canon stories of the franchise. According to Andy's interpretation, if this is going to be a dragon in Niflheim, that might be a boss fight with Nidhogg, the dragon that bites at the root of Yggdrasil that we mentioned earlier, and who chews on several corpses and indeed lives in Niflheim, and more specifically in a place called Nastrund. Andy went on to clarify that this fight might be taking place out of bounds, meaning that it might have its dedicated arena outside of the map of this expansion, as it happened for the Balor fight in the Wrath of the Druids DLC or the Ricker fight in the Dawn of Ragnarok DLC. Andy also shared a few more references connected to what he believes to be the entry points to the various regions of the Niflheim map, that is a number of bridges that might lead to the various areas that are now seemingly identified in the game files as Cold, Dark, which might match the Dark Island reference we saw earlier, Mist, and Hell, which is where Hel, as in Loki's daughter and ruler of the realm, will be located in the game mode. Judging by the trailer, these various areas are going to feature different environments and biomes, so not only the icy landscapes that should be typical of the realm of the dead, but also some lava-based environments, some autumnal ones as well, and even some green and lush ones. These 4 areas will seemingly feature a character called sommelier, which is a French word for a wine steward or expert, and that Andy and Peter interpreted as an explorer or merchant figure that we might find in the Niflheim lands, which matches the reference to the roaming merchant that we discussed earlier. These various regions will also seemingly feature altars, captains, which I'd imagine could be some mini-bosses scattered across the map, and also some cursed chests, for which, and I agree with Andy here, I wonder if there's going to be a mechanic similar to the purification of Hridmar's cursed armor set from the Dawn of Ragnarok DLC. Andy even mentioned that these cursed chests will be bound by chains, and thus players will have to destroy those before opening them. Another element mentioned here is that of the so-called health fountains, which could work as health regenerating spots in areas where the life bar of our main character Odin would be progressively reduced because of curses, the stronghold, or something similar. In a separate video, Andy also discussed the possibility for the mode to involve more raids or river raids, which I wouldn't be too surprised for, as almost every piece of new content in the post-launch has them, and those, or other activities in the game mode, might lead to the Thor and Jormungandr and also to the Niflheim Frost ship cosmetics, and there might be even more rewards tied to Forgotten Saga in the shape of some more mythological flavored weapons that have also been found in the game files. So that's what we can expect for the Forgotten Saga upcoming game mode, a mode that I'm honestly not looking forward to, if not for the pure gameplay related aspects, because as I mentioned in some past videos, I kinda have enough of having magic and mythology in AC, especially if it's not rooted in the actual established story and it's just a way to show fantasy-like magic and gods. A similar approach was taken with the Dawn of Ragnarok DLC, which is supposedly the prequel to what we're going to see in Forgotten Saga, and that I had many gripes with, both in terms of mythology and in terms of adherence to the established story, and if you'd like to know more about that, we have prepared a full analysis of the DLC and its story, so you can get in the mood for what might be waiting for you when Forgotten Saga lands this summer. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in our next video.